saying they are referring the matter to the AU for the media review and the discussion. Our position is that we have nothing to hide as South African government. We will provide, if the AU decides to put the matter on the agenda, we'll provide the report, including the facts that are related to the matter, that there are no xenophobic attacks in South Africa. There have been attacks on foreign nationals, which is unfortunate, and that law enforcement has to do their work, and we have been insisted on them doing their work, including yesterday's discussion in Cabinet. It was very clear, it was communicated to the law enforcement departments, and state security is not part of law enforcement department, to the law enforcement departments, that they must make sure that the perpetrators and instigators are brought to book, and those who attack people are brought to book, because you can't have people willy-nilly deciding to attack others with no basis of the attack, but based on a sentiment. And this is related to the tribal mobilization that is happening, that there's a grouping that wants to mobilize people around a particular tribe. So if you cannot speak that language, then you are deemed a foreign national and you're undocumented. You'll recall in one of the videos, there's a vendor guy who they want a passport for, and he tells them, but I am vendor, and so I will not have a passport, I have an ID. And they continued to attack him, to harass him. And he was just saved by the community. So that's why we're saying this thing is meant to undermine and destabilize the country, and we must call it for what it is. The mobilization against foreign national, it's a ruse that people are using to then want to mobilize society against the genuine concerns of South Africans. There are problems in South Africa of high unemployment. There are problems of employers choosing to employ foreign nationals because they can abuse them for cheap labor without following the labor laws of the country, and then forgo a South African. And there's the narrative that says South Africans will not take up those jobs. Why do you say South Africans will not take up those jobs when they are looking for employment? But there's also the part that South Africans are playing themselves, of when government made an intervention last year to say all informal businesses, including spaza shops, we must have business licenses, trading licenses. There was even waivers of registration fees. And what we needed was the papers that you are in the country. And we must also be clear, refugees, not the ones who go home during Christmas holidays, true refugees that are fleeing for one reason or the others and have been registered in accordance to South African law and international law as refugees, they are allowed to do business in South Africa and to find employment in South Africa. Why? Because South Africa does not host refugees in refugee camps. We allow them to integrate into communities. Unlike in other countries in the continent where refugees are hosted in refugee camps, they are integrated. And we at the point when we took the decision, was saying government will not be able to afford providing for refugees in refugee camps, and it will be better to get them to integrate into communities. So then when you go out and attack a foreign national on the guise that he's a foreign national without knowing his refugee status, it's a problem. And it's not true that government is not doing their part. We have been consistent. You will remember that this is the very government that has established the Border Management Authority to strengthen the work at the border, at the ports of entry in South Africa. It is this very government that has done investigations, arrested people, and fired people for corruption in the border. It is this very government that has, since the establishment of the BMA, has deported over 500,000 illegal immigrants in the country. It is this border that has said to South Africans, come and register for spaza shops, come and register for informal trading. But it's South Africans who are choosing to sublease. When the laws are very clear, the bylaws of municipalities are very clear that when you have that license, you cannot sublease it. It's for you to do business. It is this very government that have intervention programs to support through the Department of Small Business Development, to support informal and small business traders, or what you call micro business owners, to do their businesses, including the various spaza shops, hair salons, motor mechanic, penal beating, and so forth. And I know I was the Minister of Small Business Development when we first introduced the packages to support those micro businesses. So it is, you cannot say there are no intervention. We have gone further, by the way. We have gone further and said we need to revise the immigration laws. We had the draft white paper on immigration and refugee protection, and we revised it again because there were gaps that were not included in the draft white paper. We have revised it and we have approved it, and Home Affairs is working for it to be a bill. In that, we have made provision of first country of safety. You'll recall in the previous post-cabinet briefing, I indicated that in terms of first country of safety principle says, if there's a war in Zimbabwe, in Mozambique, in Eswatini, in Lesotho, in Botswana, in Namibia, the first country of safety can be South Africa or any other, because we are the first country that they go to. And I indicated at that briefing that there is no war even within the SADC region where people could justify flocking to South Africa. The wars that we know of now, it's in Sudan. And South Africa and Sudan, there are many countries of safety before Sudanese could arrive here. We have said we need to we are putting that provision in our laws so that we can be able to remove people who want to seek refugee status in South Africa who are not entitled to be in South Africa because they are other first country of safety. South Africa cannot be a center where everybody flocks to. But critical to that, as government, we have also said the problems of immigration southwards, outside of the criminality and other things that are happening in that movement, the human trafficking, drug trafficking, gun trafficking, and terrorism that is flocking through, we have said it's a development issue. We need to work in, that's why in our chairship of SADC and in our interventions, we are saying we are supporting the industrialization and development of the region of SADC and support fully the agenda of the Agenda 2063 of the African Union for silencing the guns to allow development and Africa to prosper. That's why South Africa has been the biggest champion of the African continental free trade area, so that we could then grow together. We have even engaged with our counterparts in the continent and said, when we talk about the rules of origin, we want you not to allow imports that will come and diminish the value of African products. The manufacturing within our continent. It's South Africa who's championing the critical mineral strategy in the African continent so that we can beneficiate at source, so that Africa, who is the largest reservoir of critical minerals, and critical minerals which are being used to develop economies such as China, the US, and other economies, the green economies, and the technology economies, the electronic vehicles, and the cell phones, and the digital economy. Those critical minerals are found in the largest abundance only in the African continent. But Africa is not developing, and we've said we must agree and we must be one with within the continent, as a continent, to say we will no longer export those out, but not only that, but we are going to beneficiate. If you want to have access, you must invest in the African continent and beneficiate in that country where you are extracting the minerals. We are no longer to be the exporters of dust and rocks. That is our position, because you cannot deal with the migration challenge outside of the economic and development opportunities, because either you deal with it from a political strife and war situation, or you deal with it in economic terms, economic opportunity. So we cannot, everybody collectively, the African governments must work individually and collectively to develop their own countries so that their citizens do not feel the need to migrate to another country to seek better opportunities. It is this country that has put those measures in place. But we have also equally put measures to protect South Africans. The President, during the State of the Nation address, announced the 10,000 labor inspectors so that we can go inspect these industries that hire foreign nationals without paying them salaries, who then in the restaurant industry and hospitality, they have to rely on tips. It's a reality we need to confront. And it's the very government who have made that intervention to say we're going to, because that's violation of our labor laws in South Africa. There cannot be cheap labor in South Africa. It's against our constitution that we are celebrating this year for being 30 years. That South Africa is not a source of cheap labor, whether by South Africans or by any other person, whether South African businesses or South African people, and will protect that provision so that South Africans can find jobs. And that is the commitment we have made in terms of the work that we've done. It's not the state security alone that is monitoring the protests, it's also the law enforcement that are monitoring the protests so that we can hold everybody to account, but not only hold everybody to account, to also understand what are the underlying things that are informing the protest. Because there cannot be a protest against opportunities, to protect opportunities for South Africans that then mobilize on a particular language. If you don't speak that language, you cannot speak. You are not represented. You cannot be. South Africa, there is only one nation, which is a South African nation, because that's what our forebears strived for. And that nation is both black and white. It's non-racial. It's non-sexist. It's non-tribal. And that nation must be united. We are united in confronting our challenges, and we are united in finding the solutions, but we see ourselves as one people. And that's why our constitution also recognizes the 12 official languages, with the prospects of recognizing more languages.